We are all in our places with bright, shiny faces. Our next current events session will be in 2 weeks from today on Wednesday, November 30th at noon. Okay. And I do want to mention that I'll be teaching this Friday noon lunch, the Torah study lunch program for Wilshire. Noon lunch, I'll be doing that. And the last introductory comment is we're going to keep our conversation free-flowing, and we're going to keep it respectful, and we're also going to be free to say what we believe. Mm-hmm. Unlike other times that, you want to, even I try to be parva on a bunch of issues. Not for this class, not our class, not for this discussion. We don't have to be parv. We have to be respectful. Okay, now I begin. Are you ready? Ready. The German branch of Kentucky Fried Chicken, KFC, apologized for having sent out the following message. Quote, "It's Memorial Day for Kristallnacht. Treat yourself with more tender cheese on your crispy chicken." Close quote. That was really sent out, okay? They sent it out, and it really happened. The company blamed it on a bug in the system and apologized profusely. The Jewish Telegraphic Agency called it tone deaf. Tone deaf, bug in the system. Okay. So with that in mind, and I will still continue purchasing from Kentucky Fried Chicken. Whenever my arteries clear from the fat, I'll get a new infusion, and I do like that. Now, we're going to have two areas of concern. One area is Jewish life in Israel. One is Jewish life in America. What's happening? So I wasn't aware, so I was just forwarded this this past week. The Crimson is the big news source, big campus place at Harvard University, the Crimson. Very, very, very famous. And in April, well, the beginning of May, so a few months ago, the Crimson editorial board published a full-throated embrace of BDS. And I now have the text. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's somewhat lengthy. It starts off with a beautiful poetic beginning. When oppression strikes anywhere in the world, resistance movements reverberate globally. The desire for rightful justice spreads like wildfire, moving us to act, to speak, to write, and to correct our past wrongs. Okay. The Crimson editorial board then went on to salute the Harvard College Palestine Solidarity Committee and all of the important things that it has organized in favor of Palestinian freedom and sovereignty. Calling out Israel for crimes against humanity. We first and foremost wish to extend our sincere support to those who have been and continue to be subject to violence in occupied Palestine. Going on, this is not, I'm skipping here. The editorial board is broadly and proudly supportive of the Palestine Solidarity Committee at Harvard. and looked at all the good things it did. They direct our eyes toward the property and land confiscation, citizenship denials, movement restrictions, unlawful killings that victimize Palestinians day in, day out. We need to assert that support for Palestinian liberation is not anti-Semitic. Everybody deserves nothing but life, peace, and security. Okay. Going on. Israel remains America's favorite First Amendment blind spot. Companies that choose to boycott the Jewish state or support the pro-Palestinian BDS face, and then it lists a whole series of legal repercussions that even journalists are now facing objective professional risk. If you dare question Israel's policies or endorse Palestinian freedom, you will be shunned and your comments damned. For college students like ourselves, speaking bluntly can prompt online harassment and even land you on a blacklist. With this immense occupation to student activists, makes clear there is power imbalance here. The stark difference as Israeli soldiers kill Palestinians, including children, and so forth. As an editorial board, this is interesting, we are acutely aware of the privilege we hold in having an institutional but effectively anonymous byline. Listen to this. Even on this campus, Harvard, many of our brave peers advocating for Palestinian liberation can be found on watch lists, tacitly and shamefully linking them to terrorism. We are subject to extraordinary abuses for our criticism of Israel. We have a categorical imperative to side with and empower the vulnerable and the oppressed. As a board, we are proud to finally lend our support to both Palestinian liberation and BDS, and we call on everyone to do the same. So there we have Harvard, the Harvard Crimson, and I don't know if you have any comment about it. It can stand by itself. Anyone? Okay, so I see Rebecca.
So I've got two things. It's this exact attitude that got Netanyahu elected, because the Israelis want someone that's going to be strong at the borders, I think. But my question is, what's their solution? What do these people want? I don't know what else to call them. What's their solution? 2 state, 1 state? What is it? I don't know what they're after.
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. By the way, that is a powerful question for a lot of people. What is it you are after? Because for many, the existence of Israel as a fact is offensive to the Palestinian people. So therefore, one could extrapolate, Rebecca, but I can't say this for a fact, one could extrapolate that the one-state solution would be great because that would guarantee the disappearance of Israel as a Jewish state. So that's good. Steve Miller.
What I find disturbing, and it's rampant, and you see it in the New York Times, the LA Times, there is a complete divergence of the premises of all of these supporters and actual facts, going into who the terrorists are, who targets civilians as opposed to targets others, who instigates a lot of the conflict, how many times the Palestinians have refused a sovereign state when offered. And I'm not saying that all of Israel's policies are perfect, far from it. But now that Israel has been a successful nation, there's a completely warped narrative, and it's very hard to deal with.
Okay, and I'm going to say, Steve, because going forward, I really do have the script here, that going forward, I'm going to be raising problems that are coming up out of Israel now, which is going to make your discussion very difficult to pose. Because from my perspective, there is the possibility of truly evil people being part of the Israeli cabinet.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Oh, no. Oh, yes, it is.
That doesn't mean you can ignore history and address that without making blanket assumptions and policy decisions based on a realm of inaccurate assumptions.
Okay, so I'm just saying that what's going on right now, today, as we speak, let's say, well, the others, they like late night meetings. It's going on right now. We're going to make a strong defensive posture against BDS much harder, because people are going to say, stay away from history. I'm going to read you the headlines from today's newspaper, and that's going to be real tough. Let me go on. Back to Israel, because it's all connected. Remember I told you last time there are two names you have to remember? Okay, Smotrich and Ben Gvir. I know they're hard to hold on to, but folks, I am a prophet. I know of what I speak. Yes, you must know these names. You got to know them. So Smotrich quoted as following: when speaking about Arab students in Israeli universities, illiterates occupy places in the university. Show me one Arab that passed the psychometric exam to enter university. Now, the psychometric is like the SATs. Okay, whatever. So show me one Arab who has passed the SATs in order to get into university. They are all illiterates. That's Smotrich. Okay? He said
I assume that's false.
I wish I had the capacity to simply delete your picture from the screen. I don't. Okay. Then Ben Gvir said regarding LGBTQ plus people, they have no place here in Jerusalem, nor even in the entire state of Israel. The article mentions that Ben Gvir at draft age was denied entry into the IDF because of extremist views. Okay, so these are the characters, and we'll talk about how they're getting involved and what's going on. It's going on right now. The United States has already intervened and indicated certain people for certain cabinet positions in Israel will be unacceptable to the United States. Did you ever hear of such things? I mean, you don't contact, forgive me for not remembering, the new prime minister in the UK and tell him that, by the way, these two people, if they show up in your cabinet, we're going to have nothing to do with you. They just did that with Israel.
They might do it, they just wouldn't do it publicly. We would not know about it.
Okay, but this is public. They indicated that if Smotrich ends up as Minister of Defense, which is one of the jobs he wants, as Minister of Defense of the State of Israel, he will never be invited to meet government in the United States. Whoa. Now we're talking serious stuff. Where are we now? The Knesset, the new Knesset, has already been sworn in. So there is a Knesset. Now that the Knesset is sworn in, the government has until December 14th to, not the government, the victorious party, Bibi, has until December 14th to present a cabinet for approval to the Knesset. And that's when they would take office. So Bibi is not prime minister yet. The cabinet positions are not filled yet, but the dynamic is 1 month, by the way, it's Israel, under the instructions for how to form a cabinet. By December 14th, you must have a cabinet accepted by the Knesset. However, if you need a 2-week delay, that will be granted. Okay, absolute certainty, December 14th, it could be January 1st. But this is where we are. I should take like stuff to calm my stomach down before doing this, but I'll be okay. Bibi wants Aryeh Deri to be Minister of Defense, the job that Smotrich wants. Deri is the head of Shas, the ultra-Orthodox Sephardic community. Now, that would not in any way limit, whether or not he gets to be Minister of Defense. What some of us might think would be limiting is that Deri twice has been convicted of tax evasion crimes, including having served in prison. He had to resign the leadership of the Shas party, but then he went and took an MK's office in the Knesset and continued to operate in there until the next election when Shas reelected him as head of the party. What he really wants is finance. What he really wants, this twice convicted tax evader, what he really wants is to be in charge of the distribution of money to the yeshivas and to the West Bank settlements. That's what's going on right now. Smotrich is saying, if I don't become Minister of Defense, I'm not joining your government, which means Bibi will not be prime minister. So that's Aryeh Deri. When the Knesset was sworn in, Isaac Herzog, the president of Israel, said to the assembly, could we please eliminate toxic discourse? I think if they'd taken a vote on that, the answer would have been no. Okay, Michael.
Oh, so going back around to the Crimson's op-ed.
Okay.
I was just going to say that, leaving aside like their issues with the state of Israel, I think it's interesting that they talk about the blacklisting of people who speak out in support of Palestine, and do not even mention in passing, unless you just didn't read it out from it, the same thing happening in the Jewish community, where on many college campuses, apparently, simply being Jewish is equated with being Zionist, and being Zionist is equated with being in favor of illegal settlements and right-wing governments and so forth. And, groups being, considered non grata on campus as a result, and so forth and so on. It feels like they might have recognized that goes on.
They did not. It's not in the text. No, it is not in the text. It says that there are 2 more people raising their hand, but I don't see who they are. Okay, Rebecca.
So I attended the Zoom on Monday that Rabbi Nanis arranged. And those two men from the Jewish Agency really felt that Gavir and Shostovich, whatever his name is, really speak rhetorically, and that what they're saying, it may not come to pass. But I think the U.S. stance is as it is, as you had said, is because we listened to Trump spew rhetorical statements. And look what happened. And I'm sorry if I'm offending anybody by talking about Trump. So I think the US is afraid that if Gavir and Shostovich, whatever his name is, rally the people with their rhetorical comments, that there's going to be a problem. Because from what these men also said is that a lot of the people in the military voted for Netanyahu's consortium. And so if the Israeli military is going to get all riled up because of these rhetorical comments like we had here in the United States, there may be a problem.
Okay, I think, first of all, the name is Smotrich.
Smotrich.
Say it again 3 times. Smotrich. Come on.
Smotrich.
Okay. He's a player, and you can't not speak his name. We can draw all kinds of historical parallels. We should learn to take people's statements at face value. If they say it, I'm going to believe it until proven otherwise. Because later, the category of, oh, I didn't think it was more than rhetorical, can be a very expensive. If the Jewish Agency people said that, shame on them. Shame on them. That is a very, very poor response. It's not rhetorical. And if you look at what's going on as we are broadcasting in Israel, these people have dug in their heels to get what was in their platform. Smotrich said to Bibi yesterday, these were our demands when you invited us in. How dare you not accede to them once we came in? And Smotrich has a reputation of never compromising. So, okay, I absolutely agree with you. It is a terrible mistake not to take their words as a serious concern. Steve?
Does that mean that there's a realistic or some decent probability that this government won't get formed?
I think Bibi is a consummate politician, and I mean that both as praise and criticism. I think he's going to be able to bring things together. But what he's going to sell, Steve, is most things that we care about. I'm going to go over the list. I did a little bit last time too. Smotrich and Ben-Gvir want to crush an independent judiciary in Israel, starting with the High Court, the Supreme Court, down. They want to crush it. They want to pass a resolution in the Knesset, since there is no constitution, pass a resolution in the Knesset that a majority plus one vote in the Knesset can overturn any high court decision. Understand? That's the end of an independent judiciary. It's gone. That's on their demand list. Next, and this one, despite the Jewish Agency people on Monday, this one, the Jewish Agency head, Almog, has publicly criticized. Now, the Jewish Agency is a quasi-governmental agency, independent, not independent. Almog said that the Smotrich-Ben-Gvir proposal that will change the law of return to make it impossible for a non-Jewish grandchild of someone who is Jewish to make aliyah and to become automatic citizens in Israel, the law of return, Chok HaShvut. The Jewish agency said, Almog said, and it's true, when the law of return was introduced into Israel shortly after Israel's birth, the statement was made, we will not make the definition of a Jew more restrictive, more damaging than the Nazi definition. The Nazi definition, one grandparent a Jew, you're dead. The proposal is, you're not Jewish, your grandfather's Jewish, we don't want you. And the Jewish agency attacked it. But you're asking what could be the price? So that maybe Smotrich doesn't become Minister of Defense? Changing the law of return. Or in Israel, through the work of the Israel Religious Action Center, our reform group, Chidush, headed by Uri Regev, a great non-denominational civil rights organization, rules were passed regarding who can be acceptable as citizens of Israel based upon conversion outside of Israel by Reform and conservative Jews. I don't want to make this sound too complicated, but the change was, and it was won by our people, that if a Reform or conservative rabbi officiates at a conversion in the United States for the purposes of citizenship, that person would be considered Jewish in Israel for law of return and become basically automatic citizen. Smotrich and Ben-Gvir want to change that. That no recognition would be permitted of any conversion officiated at by Reform and conservative Jews. So what would the price be? Why are we? No, Steve, I think that there's going to be a government, but I think that the potential for a serious price, a frightening price, the pushing back of 30 years of achievement in the struggle might be wiped out.
Given the size of the Jewish community, why does anyone have an incentive to try and shrink the definition of who's Jewish?
That's not on my agenda. You have to go to a psychiatric seminar and work on that. I agree with you, but there it is. I'm going to give you a small example, and then you're always, in Hebrew, you say lahavdil, which means, I don't really mean these two are equivalent. Lahavdil, same word as havdalah, separate. When the current Pope came into position, he stated that he is perfectly willing to shrink the population of Catholics in order to get a sturdy, pure core from which the church can rebuild. Okay? I see it as somewhat similar. In a desire to protect the Jewishness of the state of Israel, they're going to cut out those people and preserve Israel as a Jewish state. That would be the way I think they'd answer that. Let me go on. The situation is so dire right now. 6 months ago, I never would have spoken this way in front of people. Never, never, never. The situation is so dire that Risa and I this week heard that some of the civil rights groups fighting for liberalism within Israeli society, religious liberalism, may close their doors. They regard it as that serious. That if a government agreement is reached which sets back Israel's civil rights 30 years, some of these people are simply going to stop banging their heads against the wall. There we go. I'm going to lighten things up a little bit. I started at the beginning with KFC. I have a properly modulated class to teach, so I'll teach you another funny story. Ben-Gvir's wife was invited to a meeting of spouses of the incoming coalition. Okay? And she obviously is an important person in this gathering. She showed up, and then it was revealed that she brought a gun with her into the meeting. That's it. End of story. Why aren't you're not laughing?
I'm laughing.
Okay, all right, thank you. That's a little bit of support, Joanne. Thank you. When asked about it, Mrs. Ben-Gvir said, I live on the West Bank. I carry a gun all the time. No big deal. Okay, her husband was at a public demonstration. Was it 3 weeks ago? 4 weeks, 3 weeks ago, maybe. And he was there with bodyguards at a political demonstration, and he felt threatened, whatever. And this incoming minister pulled out a gun and was ready to start shooting. They stopped him. We're talking about incoming ministers, not the totality, not the majority, but they're very dangerous people. Now, I mentioned that the Jewish agency head Almog criticized. I mentioned that the Israeli government, the American government has already indicated that certain positions for Smotrich Ben-Gvir would render them uninvited to government meetings in the United States. That doesn't mean they couldn't travel here, but Biden is not going to sit down with Ben-Gvir and have a cup of tea. It's not going to happen. All right. You have to know a little bit about the interior politics of the American Jewish community. There is an organization of self-appointed, self-anointed uber leaders of the American Jewish community. It's called the Conference of Presidents. The full name is Conference of Presidents of Major American Jewish Organizations. Point of, I guess, what? Clarity? Yes, I served on the Conference of Presidents. I was one of those self-anointed, self-appointed, righteously powerful members of the American Jewish leadership. Now, you may feel honored, right? Don't. It is.
I was opposed.
Yeah, but you have principles. I, on the other hand, got another. I had a job listed in my bio. Come on, this is this is cool. So this group is right-wing, solid pro-Israel. Right-wing. So when J Street applied for membership in the Conference of Presidents, it was rejected. It was rejected because J Street speaks of a two-state solution and is regarded as not really Zionist, which is, I know this is being recorded, so I'm going to have to use different language than cross my head, BS. It is not true. But the Conference of Presidents attacked the proposal to amend the law of return. You'd have to realize what an incredible moment that is for people who play the game of Jewish leadership. This group criticizes Israel for nothing, and now has stepped forward to say, take it easy, guys. Speaking of J Street, I had occasion to meet with the current head of the Rabbinic Cantorial Cabinet, National Cabinet of J Street this week. And they are having a very hard time trying to balance their absolute commitment to the survival of Israel and the potential damage that could emerge from the coalition building exercise going right now. Folks, I'm not exaggerating. I am not exaggerating. For those of us who really, really care about Israel, this is a scary time. Joanne.
But this is what the people of Israel voted for. So what are they saying on the street?
I am no longer allowed publicly to say what I think is the average intelligence of the American electorate. So I'm not going to say anything because it's probably the same issue in Israel. People sometimes don't take broader issues into mind when thinking about whom they're going to vote for. I like Bibi. He's this, he's that, he stands, he's secure, he speaks English, he's quite a presence, he's an incredible politician. I'm going to vote for him without thinking of this is what it's going to take to make his government stand. So I would say that in a whole bunch of cases, people weren't thinking about this. Please. If Ben-Gvir or Smotrich, I'm having a hard time today. If Ben-Gvir and Smotrich get one of their demands, one of them is going to be in charge of the police, who are in charge of the Western Wall, who are in charge of protecting the women of the Wall in their monthly prayer vigils. Do I have to draw this out for you? These women are going to be in physical danger. They're going to be in danger if this happens. These are not, by the way, this individual would also be in charge of protecting how Jews relate to the Temple Mount. You know that the Temple Mount there are a whole bunch of agreements and restrictions as to what Jews can do on the Temple Mount. We may not like those agreements. It's questioned, it's fair, but the agreements exist. Jews are forbidden to engage in communal prayer atop the Temple Mount. You can go up as a Jew onto the Temple Mount, Mosque of Omar, Al-Aqsa Mosque. You can be there. Beautiful, beautiful Mosque of Omar. I'm certainly would agree. It's one of the most beautiful buildings we've ever seen. It's glorious. But if 2 or 3 Jews get together and start davening Shachris, that's a violation of the agreement. They could get busted for praying. Now, if one of these individuals gets to be minister of police, it is really doubtful that that kind of restriction is going to be enforced because they don't believe in it. They don't like I don't like it either, but they don't like the restriction, and they will do very little, I'm going to presume, to protect. Okay? So we go on. Before I do the update on America, that's coming up next now. Any comments before we move up? Over. On.
Boy,
By the way, this is being recorded, and Michael, your oi will have great resonance. Thank you for that. Rebecca?
I just need clarification. So if you're not Jewish and you live in Israel, you will no longer have citizenship?
Oh, no. By the way, it is sometimes much better not to be Jewish in Israel in order to get religious freedom. It's really quite interesting. It has nothing to do with the opportunity. When talking about non-Jews, how do I say this? Non-Jews are kosher. That I don't know what I just said, but you know what I mean. That non-Jews, I mean, the churches flourish. There are all kinds of issues. There are always issues, but no, absolutely.
Concerning Aliyah.
Pardon? For Israel has a standard. What's the right term? I'm blocking at it. When you go through a process to become a citizen, naturalization. It has a standard naturalization process for non-Jewish or non-law of return applicants, put it that way. And it's pretty normal, pretty much like other Western countries. The difference is with the law of return, Jews do not have to wait for that. They can be factored in. Steve, quick, and then we're going to move to the Jews of America.
Before you move on, I think you left out an important piece of this, and that is you have to tell us what we as individuals and what our Jewish groups in the United States can do and should do in this environment.
I'm going to answer that question seriously. Don't give up on Israel. That is very important. Don't give up on Israel. They're doing the fight. The fight is going on. The reform movement formally, officially has taken all kinds of strong stands in our name. Don't give up on Israel. Don't despair for Israel. This is a current, real worry, but we have to stand by and watch. There is nothing we can do. We must not involve approaches to the US government to intervene more strongly. We must not do that. And look, you send a note to BB saying, hey, BB, give me a break, buddy. It may not have much impact. So at this point, there's a Hebrew expression, shev al ta'aseh. Sit, don't do. There's nothing in the next few weeks you can do. Letters to the editor to inflame anti-Israel sentiment in the United States, long range, not a good idea. No, Steve, I would shev al ta'aseh. But don't give up on Israel. Don't give up on Israel. Okay, Now, but thank you for the question.
Stan, I would also say keep a close eye on what the name's going to go out. The Reform rabbi who is an MK and will remain that way. He
Yeah.
needs our support 100%.
Gilad Kariv.
Gilad needs to hear from us.
Gilad, Gilad Kariv, K-A-R-I-V. If you want to do something, Steve, and if others want to do, and Reese is totally correct, Gilad, G-I-L-A-D, Kariv, K-A-R-I-V, member of Knesset. You can find his email by going to the Knesset website. And just tell him to hang in there. He's on the right side. He's not waffling. We need him. You want to offer strength? Thank you. Offer strength to Gilad Kariv. You're following him on Facebook. I mean, Gilad Kariv is a source of hope as an individual and as a member of Knesset and as a Reformed Jew, as a Reformed rabbi, and as a lawyer. He's got all that. Okay, now, we have, in the time that we have left, a consideration of what's going on in the United States, while, I'm perfectly willing to say the Republicans hold on to the House, or have taken the House of Representatives. The Democrats will hold the Senate. The vote of Senate in Georgia is going to be really important so that Manchin does not become the god of the Democratic Party once again. He is a false god. And if the Democrats can take the senatorial seat in Georgia, Manchin's power will be dramatically reduced. That is a good thing. My perspective, that is a good thing. Okay, now, what's playing big in Israel today that affects American Jewry? You read about this missile strike that hit Poland, right? And apparently, and thank God they took it, they played it right. They kept it really low key. No one got hysterical. And it seems now that it was a Ukrainian anti-missile missile that was sent up to shoot down one of the barrage of Russian missiles. It went astray. It was a Ukrainian missile that hit Poland and killed, I think, 2 people. We did not start a nuclear war over it. People took it slowly. That's a good thing. Now, Ukraine is desperately in need of the most sophisticated anti-missile systems in the world. That's Israel. That's Israel's systems. Israel to date has refused to sell those or deliver those to Ukraine. And Ukraine and Israel have an increasingly fraught relationship. And that's going to percolate into the American Jewish community. Ukraine wants Israel's wholehearted, full voice support. You know that Israel, though not a member of NATO, wants very much to be active within the European Union and to be considered a Western power, but is not, for a variety of reasons, actively supporting Zelensky and the Ukrainian people. And in terms of the American Jewish concern, that's a big one again. In the conversations about what the future looks like. I feel so good that I can speak with the voice of a prophet. It's pretty nice. I listened to a webinar at 10 o'clock this morning. It was amazing. Susanna Heschel was on the webinar. Oh my God, am I blocking? And one of the great African-American professors, formerly at Harvard, Princeton, now at Union Theological, they were having a discussion about prophecy functioning in today's world. They both, and Suzanne is brilliant, the daughter of Abraham Joshua Heschel. They both concluded that even more important than the actual laws that may or may not protect minorities in this country, there has to be love. There has to be caring. It's not just a question of getting the right laws on the books. You must care. Right now, today, Congress is going to try to move in a lame duck to get laws protecting same-sex marriage codified. I think this is extremely important. And if you're interested in being active again, doing something, contact with your Congress people, both sides of the aisle, House of Representatives and the Senate. If they will codify same-sex marriage, the House of Representatives has already approved not a resolution, but proposed law. It's now coming before the Senate.
They passed the bill.
Pardon?
They passed the bill, and
Who passed what bill?
the House passed the bill.
Oh, that was previously, yes.
And now if the Senate approves it with their own bill, it would be law. If they tweak it, if they don't get it back to the House before the new
Right.
Congress, it's going to be dead.
Okay. So this is a Jewish concern from my perspective. And it's a matter of compassion and it's a matter of caring about that. So, number one, we have to be really aware of the negotiations going on now. And if you want to be active, now is a damn good time to be active, to contact your senators and representatives and say, you know what? There was broad bipartisan support, Steve, right? In the House for this bill. It's not a squeaker with one vote. It's broadly supported in the House. It's coming to the Senate. But if it doesn't pass the Senate now, it will die. And with the new House coming in, it will really die. So that's number one. Number two, the battle over the Electoral College. Pay attention. The power of the American Jewish vote is in some ways wrapped around the Electoral College. If we do away with the Electoral College, which I think we should, that will have a direct negative impact on the level of influence of the American Jewish community on national elections. I think that is not me saying don't support the change. It is me saying, be aware. be aware. That's happening. And the last thing, and I do apologize because at 1 o'clock I have to flee. My ride will be here for the funeral. America now is grappling with the question, will all social concerns be viewed through lenses of race and gender? And it's being framed as, how woke does America have to be before wokeness can threaten the fabric of our society? And yeah, I have my opinions. You're not surprised. I have my opinions. And I like to consider myself woke, except from 2 to 4 when I like to nap. If everything is going to be viewed through the lens of gender and race, this also could have negative ramifications for the security of the American Jewish community. My feeling. That's not a rule. That's Stanley talking. Okay, we have on my little thingy 1 minute, 60 seconds. Michael, you get 30 seconds.
Okay, real quick, since you mentioned the Electoral College, probably everyone here knows this, but of course, it's not going anywhere without a constitutional amendment because it's baked into the Constitution. However, if anyone is contacting their senators and representatives, as the rabbi suggested, with regard to marriage equality, they can also mention the Electoral Count Reform Act, which will clarify, this is also a bipartisan bill, to clarify the rules around the counting of the electoral vote in order to prevent other January 6th situations and related chicanery. So I urge you to add that into your ask as well.
Thank you. Steve, 30
I
seconds.
totally disagree with you on the Electoral College because of where the Jews live. Hillary won by 6 million, by 7 million votes, 6 million, but 7 million were in New York and California, and the Jews are not heavily involved in the states who benefit from the Electoral College. And the other thing is the other way around the Electoral College, it's now been passed by about 30 states, is state law where the electors will be awarded to the winner of the national popular vote.
Which is a really good thing. I thank you all very, very much. I will see some of you, if you choose to join me, where I become nonpartisan Friday at noon for Torah study and Saturday morning for our regular Chevra Torah. Thank you. Love you all. Relax. The world is in great shape. Right? Have a good week.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Thank you.